Kate Morrison woke up with a splitting headache and the taste of metal in her mouth. The last thing she remembered was the bright flash when the alien ship's weapons hit the EDS horizon. Now she was lying on a cold, smooth floor that seemed to glow with its own light. She sat up slowly, her hand moving to where her sidearm should have been. Gone. Her uniform was torn in several places, and dried blood covered a cut on her forehead. The room around her was unlike anything she had ever seen. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. There was no door that she could see, just smooth surfaces that met at perfect angles. "You are awake," voice said inside her head. Kate spun around, looking for the source. "Do not search with your eyes, human. I speak directly to your primitive brain through the translation matrix." "Who are you? Where am I?" Kate demanded, standing and backing against one of the crystal walls. "I am Commander Vexthar of the Zephyrian Empire. You are aboard my vessel, the Star Render. Your pathetic ship has been destroyed, along with the rest of your crew." Kate felt her heart sink. Captain Martinez, Engineer Brown, Dr. Lewis, and all the others. They had been her friends, her family. The Horizon had been humanity's first deep space exploration vessel, sent to make contact with whatever lay beyond their solar system. Instead, they had found death. "What do you want with me?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "You will serve as entertainment," the voice replied with what sounded like amusement, "and as a test to determine the fate of your entire species." The crystal wall in front of Kate suddenly became transparent. Beyond it was a corridor filled with beings that made her breath catch in her throat. They stood 7 feet tall with dark gray skin that looked like armor plating. Each one had 4 arms that ended in claws sharp enough to cut through steel. Their faces were angular, with glowing yellow eyes and mouths full of teeth designed for tearing flesh. One of these creatures approached the wall. When it spoke, the translation system made its harmonic clicking sound like words. "This is the human specimen. It looks even weaker than our scouts reported." Kate stepped closer to the transparent wall. "I have a name, Lieutenant Commander Kate Morrison of the Earth Defense Force." The creature that must have been Vexthar tilted his head. "Names are for beings who matter, human. You are simply a test subject now." "Test subject for what?" "The arena of ascension," Vexthar replied. "For 1,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire has led the Galactic Coalition. When we encounter new species, we give them one chance to prove their worth. They send their best warrior to fight in our arena. If they can defeat our champions, they earn the right to join the coalition as equals. If they fail, their species is marked for extermination." Kate felt cold despite the warm air in her cell. "And if I refuse?" "Then your Earth burns without even the honor of a trial. We have already mapped your world's defenses. Your people would not last a day against our fleet." She closed her eyes and thought of Earth. Her sister Amy was probably feeding her cats right now, completely unaware that humanity's fate rested on what happened in an alien fighting pit. Her parents were retired in Florida, growing tomatoes in their backyard garden. Billions of people going about their daily lives, not knowing they might all die because of a decision made in the depths of space. "What are the rules?" Kate asked. Vexthar seemed pleased by her question. "Simple. You fight until you die, or until you have defeated enough opponents to satisfy the Council of Species. No warrior has survived more than 3 matches. Most die in the first. How many matches would I need to win?" "That depends on how entertaining you prove to be," the alien commander said. "The longer you survive, the more spectacular your eventual death becomes. The crowd enjoys watching lesser beings struggle against their betters." Kate straightened her shoulders. "When do we start?" "Eager to die for your kind? How touchingly primitive." Vexthar made a sound that might have been laughter. "The arena operates on a 7-day cycle. You have 3 days to prepare. You will be fed and given basic medical treatment. A weapon will be provided before each match." "Just one weapon?" "More than most species receive. Consider it a gesture of mercy." The transparent wall became opaque crystal again, leaving Kate alone with her thoughts. She began to pace the small cell, her mind racing. She had been trained, for combat, but against human enemies using human weapons. The creatures she had seen in the corridor were bigger, stronger, and faster than any human. They had claws that could cut through metal and skin that looked like natural armor. But they had made one mistake. They had given her 3 days to think. Kate had graduated from the Mars Military Academy with honors in tactical planning. She had served in the asteroid belt conflicts and the Europa Liberation. She had survived situations that should have killed her by using her head instead of just her weapon. If she was going to die, she would make it count. She spent the first day examining every inch of her cell, memorizing the pattern of lights in the crystal walls, testing which surfaces were harder than others. The second day, she exercised, pushing her body to remember every combat technique she had ever learned. The third day, she meditated, calming her mind and preparing for what was to come. The food they gave her was nutritious but tasteless, delivered through a slot that appeared and disappeared in the wall. The medical treatment consisted of a spray that healed her cuts and bruises instantly. She tested her reflexes and found them sharp. Whatever these aliens wanted, they wanted her in fighting condition. On the morning of the fourth day, the wall dissolved completely. Vexthar stood waiting with 4 guards. "It is time, human. Try to make your death interesting." Kate walked out of her cell with her head held high. She had stepped into their trap willingly, knowing she would probably die. But she also knew something that Vexthar did not understand. Humans did not just fight for themselves. They fought for everyone they loved, everyone they had left behind, and everyone they would never get to meet. She was going to die in their arena, but she was going to make them remember her. The arena of ascension was carved from the inside of an asteroid, its wall stretching up so high that Kate could barely see the top. Thousands of alien beings filled the viewing platforms that ringed the fighting floor. Their voices created a sound like thunder as they called for blood and death. Kate stood in the center of the arena, sand beneath her feet that was stained dark red from centuries of combat. The air smelled of metal and fear. Above her, floating in the center of the space, was a creature that looked like a jellyfish made of light. When it spoke, its voice echoed through the entire arena. "Citizens of the Coalition, today we witness another pathetic species attempt to prove their worth. The human specimen will face 3 opponents to begin her trial." The creature's voice was filled with amusement. "Let us see how long this soft-fleshed weakling can survive." A gate opened across the arena, and Kate's first opponent emerged. It stood 10 feet tall and looked like a giant insect walking on its back legs. Its body was covered in shiny black armor plating, and acid dripped from its mouth, sizzling when it hit the sand. 4 arms ended in claws that could tear through steel, and its eyes glowed with hunger. "The Krillian berserker feeds on the pain of its enemies," the floating announcer said. "It can regenerate from any wound, and its acid can dissolve flesh in seconds. The human has been given a plasma blade. Let the slaughter begin." A small weapon appeared in the sand next to Kate. She picked it up and activated it, creating a glowing blue blade about the length of her arm. The weapon felt balanced in her hand, but she knew it would not be enough against the monster walking toward her. The crowd roared as the Krillian charged. Kate dove to the side, rolling in the sand as claws whistled through the air where her head had been. She came up running, trying to put distance between herself and the creature. Acid spit hit the ground behind her, creating smoking holes in the arena floor. Kate looked up at the walls around the fighting space. The arena was old, carved from living rock. Some sections looked weaker than others. She had an idea, but it would require perfect timing. The Krillian turned and charged again, its claws reaching for her chest. Kate waited until the last possible second, then dropped flat on her back. The creature stumbled over her, its momentum carrying it forward. Kate rolled away and swung her plasma blade at one of the support pillars that held up a section of the ceiling. The blade cut deep into the stone. Cracks spread from the cut like a spider web. The Krillian recovered and spun around, acid flying from its mouth. Kate dodged and struck the pillar again, this time cutting all the way through. A section of the ceiling came crashing down. The Krillian looked up just in time to see tons of rock falling toward it. The creature tried to dodge, but the falling stone caught it across the back and shoulders. Its armor cracked and green blood pooled beneath the rubble. The arena fell silent. Kate stood over the crushed Krillian, breathing hard. She had won her first match, but not the way anyone had expected. The floating announcer seemed shocked into silence. Impossible. Bexthar's voice came through the translation system. No creature has ever used the arena itself as a weapon. The human specimen shows unexpected cunning, the announcer finally said. But cunning will not save her from her next opponent. Another gate opened, and Kate's second enemy appeared. This one was harder to see clearly because it kept fading in and out of sight. When it was visible, it looked like a tall, thin humanoid covered in dark gray skin. Its fingers ended in claws, and its eyes were solid black. The Nethys Shadow Walker can phase through solid matter, the announcer explained. It exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously and can strike from anywhere at any time. No warrior has ever successfully defended against its attacks. Kate watched the creature carefully. It would disappear completely, then reappear behind her or to her side, striking out with its claws before fading away again. She tried to block its attacks, but her blade passed right through it when it was in its shadow form. After several near misses that left cuts on her arms and legs, Kate began to notice a pattern. The creature always took a half-second to become solid before it could attack. In that brief moment, it was vulnerable. More importantly, she realized that it was not randomly appearing around her. It was following a pattern based on where she was looking. When she looked left, it appeared on her right. When she looked up, it came from below. The creature was intelligent, but it thought like a predator. It assumed she was like the other species they had faced, creatures that relied on logic and calculation. But humans could be illogical. They could do things that made no sense. Kate closed her eyes and stood perfectly still. The crowd gasped. The Shadow Walker appeared directly in front of her, its claws reaching for her throat. At the last second, Kate opened her eyes and thrust her plasma blade forward, not where she could see the creature, but where her instincts told her it would be. The blade pierced the Shadow Walker through the chest. The creature looked down in shock, green blood flowing from the wound. It tried to fade back into shadow form, but the plasma energy disrupted its ability to phase between dimensions. Kate twisted the blade, and the creature collapsed. The arena erupted in noise. Some aliens were cheering, others were making sounds of anger or confusion. Kate pulled her weapon free and stepped back, ready for whatever came next. 2 victories, the announcer said, and now there was respect in its voice. The human has defeated opponents that have killed dozens of other species champions, but the third match will surely end this unusual display. Kate wiped sweat from her forehead and checked her wounds. The cuts from the Shadow Walker were shallow, but painful. Her arms ached from wielding the plasma blade, and she was getting tired, but she was still alive. And that was more than anyone had expected. She looked up at the viewing platforms where thousands of alien beings were watching her. For the first time since she had arrived, she saw something other than bloodthirst in their eyes. Some of them looked curious. A few even seemed impressed. Kate Morrison had come to die in this arena. Instead, she was starting to live. Kate had been in the arena for 5 days now, and she was still alive. This was already longer than any other species had ever survived. After her victories over the Krillian Berserker and the Nethys Shadow Walker, the crowd had started calling her the adaptive one instead of just the human specimen. Her third opponent had been a thermal wraith, a being made of living fire that could reach temperatures hot enough to melt steel. Kate had beaten it by using the arena's water systems, flooding the fighting floor and short-circuiting the creature's energy core. Her fourth match was against a void stalker that could bend gravity around itself. She won by causing it to create a gravity well so strong that it crushed itself. Now she sat in her cell, thinking about what she had learned. Each creature she had faced was incredibly powerful in its own way, but they were also limited. The Krillian was built for brute force attacks. The Shadow Walker could only think like a predator. The thermal wraith relied entirely on its heat. The Void Stalker followed predictable gravity patterns. They were all specialists, bred or evolved for one specific type of combat. But Kate was a generalist. She could adapt, change tactics, use unexpected strategies. It was starting to make sense why the aliens seemed so surprised by her victories. A soft sound made her look up. The crystal wall was becoming transparent again, but this time it was not Commander Vexthar standing outside. This alien was smaller, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. It wore white robes instead of armor, and it had only 2 arms like a human. "Greetings, Kate Morrison," the alien said through the translation system. "I am Dr. Yilin Korth, medical officer of this facility. I have come to treat your injuries." The wall dissolved and the doctor entered her cell carrying a medical kit. Kate was suspicious at first, but the alien's movements were calm and gentle. It began to examine the cuts and bruises she had received in her recent fights. "You are an interesting specimen," Dr. Korth said as it worked. "I have studied many species over the years, but humans are unique." "How so?" Kate asked. The doctor applied a healing spray to a cut on her shoulder. "Most species in the galaxy are specialists. The Zephyrians bred themselves for warfare over thousands of years. The Krillians evolved for strength and regeneration. The Nethys developed their phase abilities to hunt prey across dimensions. Each species found one thing they were good at and focused on it completely. And humans? Humans are different. Your brain structure, your muscle composition, your sensory systems, they are all designed for adaptability instead of specialization. You can learn new skills, change your behavior, solve problems in ways that other species cannot even imagine." Dr. Korth finished treating her wounds and sat back. "This is why you are winning fights that should be impossible to win. You do not think like the creatures you face. They expect their opponents to follow logical patterns, to use the most efficient combat techniques. But humans can choose to be inefficient, illogical, unpredictable." Kate thought about this. "Is that why they brought me here? Because they are afraid of humans?" The doctor looked around nervously, then leaned closer. "I should not tell you this, but you deserve to know the truth. This arena is not really about testing whether species deserve to join the coalition. It is about eliminating threats to Zephyrian power." "What do you mean?" 1,000 years ago, Zephyrian scouts visited your solar system. They saw primitive humans living in small groups using simple tools. Your people seemed harmless, so the scouts ignored Earth and moved on to other worlds. Dr. Korth activated a small device that created a privacy field around them. Recently, our deep space monitors detected something alarming. In just a few decades, humans went from a single planet to interstellar travel. Your expansion rate is unprecedented in galactic history. The Zephyrians realized they had made a terrible mistake by ignoring you. Kate felt a chill run down her spine. "So this whole thing is designed to kill me?" The arena of ascension has never allowed a species to truly win. When fighters get too successful, the rules change. Additional opponents are added. The weapons are restricted. Eventually, every champion dies and their species is marked for extermination. But I am still alive. "Yes, and that terrifies them," the doctor said. "You have won 4 matches using methods no one predicted. The betting pools among the spectator species have shifted dramatically. Many aliens are now wagering on your survival, not your death." Kate stood up and began pacing her cell. "What happens next? Tomorrow you face your 5th opponent, a cerebral dominator. These beings attack the mind directly, taking control of their enemies' thoughts and forcing them to kill themselves. No physical weapon can stop them because the battle takes place entirely in the realm of consciousness." "And after that?" Dr. Korth gathered up its medical supplies. "If you somehow survive the cerebral dominator, you will face War Prime Kethvar, the current arena champion. He is a genetically modified Zephyrian super soldier. No one has ever lasted more than 30 seconds against him." The doctor moved toward the wall, then stopped. "Kate Morrison, I want you to know that there are many species in this galaxy who are tired of Zephyrian rule. If you continue to win, you will give them hope that change is possible." The wall reformed, leaving Kate alone with her thoughts. She now understood that she was not just fighting for humanity's survival. She was fighting against a system designed to keep the strong in power and the weak in chains. Her fifth match came sooner than expected. As she walked into the arena, she noticed that the crowd was different. Instead of just calling for blood, many aliens were chanting her name. Some held up signs written in languages she could not read, but their meaning was clear. They wanted her to win. The cerebral dominator floated into the arena without touching the ground. It looked like a giant brain with tentacles pulsing with purple light. When it spoke, its voice came from inside Kate's own head. "Human, you will kneel before me and end your own life. Your mind is primitive and weak. You cannot resist my power." Kate felt the alien's thoughts pressing against hers, trying to take control. Images flashed through her mind. Her sister Amy crying over her grave. Her parents receiving news of her death. Earth burning under alien weapons. The creature was trying to break her will with fear and despair. But Kate had spent her entire life dealing with fear. Every soldier did. She had learned to function despite terror, to make decisions when everything inside her was screaming to run away. The cerebral dominator was powerful, but it had never faced a mind trained to resist its own emotions. Instead of fighting the alien's mental intrusion directly, Kate did something unexpected. She opened her mind completely, flooding the connection with every random thought, memory, and feeling she had ever experienced. She remembered her first kiss, the taste of chocolate ice cream, the sound of rain on her childhood bedroom window, the smell of her mother's cooking, the feeling of sand between her toes on a beach vacation. The cerebral dominator reeled back, overwhelmed by the chaotic flood of human consciousness. Its carefully structured mental attack collapsed under the weight of pure human experience, messy, contradictory, and completely unpredictable. While the creature was still stunned, Kate picked up her plasma blade and struck. The cerebral dominator fell to the arena floor, its purple light fading to nothing. The crowd exploded in cheers. Kate looked up at the viewing platforms and saw something she had never expected to see. Aliens from dozens of different species were on their feet, celebrating her victory. For the first time in 1,000 years, someone had given them hope that the Zephyrian Empire could be challenged. Kate Morrison had stepped into their arena to die. Instead, she was teaching an entire galaxy how to live free. After Kate's victory over the cerebral dominator, everything changed. The alien spectators no longer came to watch her die. They came to see her win. Betting pools had shifted so dramatically that some species were wagering their entire planetary treasuries on her survival. The atmosphere in the arena had transformed from bloodthirsty entertainment to something approaching religious fervor. Commander Vexthar was not pleased. Kate could hear him arguing with other Zephyrian officials through the translation system as she sat in her cell. Their harmonic voices carried anger and fear in equal measure. 6 victories, one official was saying. This was never supposed to happen. The other species are beginning to question our authority, another added. Some are openly cheering for the human. This undermines everything we have built. Then, we end it, Vexthar replied. Tomorrow she faces not one opponent, but 3, the current champion and his 2 predecessors working together. No single fighter can survive that, no matter how adaptive. Kate smiled grimly. So they were changing the rules because she was winning too much. That told her everything she needed to know about the fairness of this system. When Dr. Korth arrived for her daily medical check, Kate could see the worry in the alien physician's large eyes. They are breaking their own protocols, the doctor said quietly while applying healing spray to Kate's minor injuries. The arena has always been single combat. What they plan to do tomorrow is unprecedented. Tell me about the champions, Kate said. War Prime Kethavar is the current title holder. He is a Zephyrian who has undergone genetic modification to make him faster, stronger, and more aggressive than any natural member of his species. His predecessor was Bonecrusher Thane, a creature from the Death Worlds who can shatter steel with his bare hands. Before him was Voidstalker Prime, an enhanced version of the gravity-bending species you already defeated. Kate nodded. 3 opponents, each designed to kill in a different way. speed, strength, and gravity manipulation. Even if you somehow defeated them individually, facing all three at once is suicide, Dr. Korth said. Kate, I have grown fond of you during these treatments. Perhaps it is time to consider surrender. Death with honor is better than the humiliation they are planning. Doctor, can you tell me about the arena's energy systems? The alien looked confused by the change of subject. What do you mean? The barriers that keep the fights contained, the lighting, the gravity controls. How does it all work? Dr. Korth glanced around nervously. The arena uses a centralized energy distribution network. Plasma conduits run throughout the structure, controlled from a central hub located beneath the fighting floor. But why do you ask about this? Kate smiled. Because I think it is time to give the crowd a show they will never forget. The next morning, Kate walked into the arena to find the crowd larger than it had ever been. Word of the unprecedented 3-on-1 match had spread throughout the coalition, and representatives from dozens of species had arrived to witness what everyone assumed would be her death. The floating announcer, prime narrator Zilk, seemed almost apologetic as it addressed the audience. Citizens of the coalition, today we witness a historic event. Due to the human's unusual success, the Arena Council has declared that she must face multiple opponents simultaneously. A murmur of disapproval ran through the crowd. Even aliens who had never seen a human before could recognize unfairness when they saw it. The three champions entered the arena from different gates. War Prime Kethvar looked like a Zephyrian built from nightmares, 8 feet tall, covered in metal implants, with claws that glowed with energy. Bone Crusher Thane was a massive humanoid made of what looked like living rock, his hands large enough to crush Kate's entire body. Voidstalker Prime floated above the ground, warping the air around it with gravitational distortions. The human will be provided with her standard plasma blade, Zilk announced. Let the trial begin. The weapon appeared in the sand near Kate's feet, but she made no move to pick it up. Instead, she looked up at the thousands of aliens watching from the viewing platforms. People of the galaxy, she called out, her voice carrying clearly through the arena's acoustics. You have been lied to for 1,000 years. Vexthar's voice crackled through the translation system. Silence the human. Begin the combat. But, Kate continued speaking, this arena is not about honor or testing worthiness, it is about fear. The Zephyrians are terrified that other species might challenge their power, so they created this system to eliminate any potential threats. The three champions began moving toward her, but Kate was already in motion. She dove for her plasma blade and rolled toward one of the arena's support pillars. As Bone Crusher Thane's massive fist smashed into the ground where she had been standing, Kate struck the pillar with her weapon, but this time she was not trying to bring down the ceiling. She was cutting into the plasma conduits that Dr. Korth had described. Sparks flew as her blade penetrated the energy distribution network. Kate rolled away as War Prime Kethvar's claws slashed through the air, then struck another conduit. The arena's lighting flickered. What is she doing? Vexithar's voice carried confusion and growing alarm. Kate struck a third conduit, and suddenly she had access to something no fighter in the arena's history had ever possessed. Direct control over the facility's energy systems. The plasma blade in her hands flared brighter as it drew power from the damaged network. Voidstalker Prime tried to crush her with a gravity field, but Kate redirected energy from the arena's artificial gravity system, creating a counterfield that sent the creature spinning out of control. When Bone Crusher Thane charged at her, she overloaded the lighting system above him, causing an explosion that stunned the massive creature. War Prime Kethvar was faster and smarter than his companions. He adapted to Kate's new tactics, using his enhanced reflexes to avoid the energy discharges she directed at him. For several minutes they fought across the arena floor, Kate using her knowledge of the facility's systems while Kethvar relied on his superior physical abilities. The turning point came when Kate realized that the Zephyrian's enhancements, while making him incredibly dangerous, had also made him predictable. His modified brain calculated the most efficient attack patterns, the optimal ways to use his enhanced strength and speed. But efficiency was not always the best strategy. Kate feinted left, then dove right, directly into what should have been a fatal strike zone. Kethvar's claws passed over her head as she slid between his legs and struck upward with her overcharged plasma blade. The weapon penetrated his armor and sent feedback through his cybernetic systems. The enhanced Zephyrian collapsed, his implants sparking and failing. Standing over her three defeated opponents, Kate looked up at the stunned crowd. "The arena of ascension ends today," she announced. "No more will species be forced to die for the entertainment of others. No more will the strong prey on the weak simply because they can." She turned toward the viewing platform where Vexthar and the other Zephyrian officials sat. "I challenge the entire system that created this place. Send your best warrior, your ultimate champion. Let them face me in honest combat, with honest terms. If I win, humanity earns not just membership in the coalition, but a voice in how it is run. If I lose, then at least everyone will know that we tried." The arena fell silent. Then, slowly, the sound began to build. It started with a few voices from species that had lost their own champions to this rigged system. Then more joined in, and more, until thousands of aliens were chanting Kate's name and demanding justice. Kate Morrison had broken more than just the arena's energy systems. She had broken the system of fear and oppression that had ruled the galaxy for a millennium, and Commander Vexthar, faced with the collapse of everything his people had built, made the only choice he felt he could make. He would enter the arena himself. The arena had never been so quiet. 50,000 beings from across the galaxy sat in complete silence as Commander Vexthar descended from the viewing platforms to the fighting floor. He wore full battle armor that gleamed like black metal and carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. This was the supreme military leader of the Zephyrian Empire, enhanced with centuries of genetic modification and cybernetic implants. Kate stood alone in the center of the arena, her simple, plasma blade looking pitiful compared to the arsenal that Vexthar carried. She was exhausted from her fight against 3 champions, wounded and facing an opponent who could probably defeat any 10 normal warriors without effort. "Human." Vexthar's voice echoed through the arena's speakers. "You have caused enough chaos. Your species will burn for the trouble you have brought to our perfect system." "Your system was never perfect," Kate replied, her voice carrying to every corner of the massive space. "It was built on fear and maintained through murder. That is not strength. That is weakness." Prime narrator Zilk floated above them, its light pulsing with excitement. "Citizens of the Coalition, witness the final confrontation. The Supreme Commander of the Zephyrian military faces the human who has defied every law of nature." Vexthar activated his weapons. Energy blasters built into his armor, molecular disruption fields around his claws, and targeting systems that could track a moving target across miles. "I am the perfect warrior," he said. "Engineered for victory. Enhanced beyond the limits of natural biology. You are just flesh and bone." "Yes," Kate said, raising her plasma blade. "I am." The fight began with Vexthar's attack coming faster than the human eye should have been able to follow. Energy beams scorched the sand where Kate had been standing a split second before. His claws slashed through the air with enough force to cut through starship armor. His targeting computers calculated her position, her likely movements, the optimal attack angles. But Kate was not where the computers said she should be. She moved in patterns that made no tactical sense. Dodging left when right would have been safer, attacking when she should have defended, defending from angles that seemed random. Vexthar's enhanced brain, designed to predict and counter optimal combat behavior, could not process her seemingly illogical choices. "Stand still and die with honor," Vexthar snarled as another energy beam missed its target. "Honor is not about dying well," Kate replied, rolling under his claws and striking at his leg armor. "It is about living well and helping others do the same." Her blade scratched his armor but did not penetrate. Vexthar backhanded her across the arena, sending her tumbling through the sand. His enhanced strength was overwhelming. When she tried to get up, he was already there, his foot slamming down where her head had been a moment before. Kate rolled away and came to her feet, breathing hard. Blood ran from cuts on her face and arms. She was outmatched in every measurable way: strength, speed, weapons, armor. By every logical calculation, she should have been dead already. But logic was not the only factor in this fight. Kate began to study Vexthar's attack patterns more carefully. His enhancements made him incredibly dangerous, but they also made him predictable. His modified brain always chose the most efficient combat algorithms. His targeting systems always aimed for the highest probability kill shots. His enhanced reflexes always responded to threats in the most optimal way. The problem was that optimal and unexpected were often opposites. Kate started doing things that no trained fighter should do. She threw sand in his face, not to blind him, but to force his targeting systems to recalibrate. She deliberately fell down, not from weakness but to change the angles of engagement. She even threw her weapon at him, not to hurt him but to make him dodge in a direction that put him off balance. "What are you doing?" Vexthar demanded as his carefully calculated attacks continued to miss their mark. "Fight properly." "I am fighting," Kate said, picking up her blade and immediately throwing it again. "Just not the way you expect." The crowd began to understand what they were witnessing. This was not just a battle between two warriors. It was a confrontation between two different philosophies of existence. Vexithar represented perfection through enhancement, optimization, the elimination of all variables and uncertainties. Kate represented adaptation, creativity, the ability to find strength in apparent weakness. The turning point came when Vexthar, frustrated by his inability to land a decisive blow, activated all his weapon systems simultaneously. Energy beams, molecular disruptors, and kinetic projectiles filled the air around Kate. No living being should have been able to survive the barrage. But Kate did not try to survive it. Instead, she did something that violated every rule of combat. She ran directly into the attack. Vexthar's targeting systems, designed to predict evasive maneuvers, could not adjust quickly enough to track a target moving toward the weapons instead of away from them. Kate passed through the energy storm and tackled Vexthar around the waist. Both fighters hit the sand hard, rolling and grappling. For the first time in the fight, Kate's smaller size was an advantage. She was harder to grab, more flexible, able to slip out of holds that would have trapped a larger opponent. They fought, hand to hand across the arena floor. Vexthar's enhanced strength still gave him the edge, but his cybernetic systems were not designed for close-quarters wrestling. Kate used every dirty trick she had learned in her military training: elbow strikes, knee attacks, pressure points, that worked even on alien anatomy. Finally, she managed to get behind him and wrap her arm around his neck. Vexthar tried to throw her off, but she held on, applying pressure to his carotid arteries. His enhanced body fought the hold, but even Zephyrian blood needed oxygen to reach the brain. "Yield," Kate whispered in his ear. "This does not have to end in death." Vexthar struggled for a few more seconds, then went limp. Kate held the choke for another moment to be sure, then released him and stood up. The supreme commander of the Zephyrian military lay unconscious at her feet. The arena erupted in sound unlike anything in its 1,000-year history. Aliens from dozens of species were cheering, crying, embracing each other. Many had never believed they would see the day when Zephyrian rule could be challenged. Kate looked down at Vexthar, then did something that shocked everyone watching. She knelt beside him and checked his pulse. When she was satisfied that he was alive and breathing, normally she helped him sit up. "Why?" Vexthar asked when he regained consciousness. His voice carried confusion instead of anger. "You could have killed me. By the laws of the arena, you had the right." "Because killing you would not have solved anything," Kate replied. "The problem was never you personally. The problem was a system that made violence the only solution to every dispute." She stood and addressed the crowd. "People of the galaxy, the arena of ascension is finished, not because I won, but because we all won. Every species here today proved that they deserve respect, dignity, and a voice in their own future." Prime. Narrator Zilk floated down to Kate's level. "Human Kate Morrison, you have achieved something unprecedented. You have not just won the arena, you have transcended it. What do you wish as your reward?" Kate looked around at the thousands of faces watching her. Alien beings from across the galaxy who had traveled here to witness this moment. "I want to go home," she said. but not as a conqueror or a champion, as an ambassador. Let humanity join the coalition not as subjects or rulers, but as partners in building something better than what came before. A communication signal reached the arena's receivers at that moment. The floating announcer processed the information and announced it to the crowd. A human rescue fleet has entered this system. They have come seeking their lost explorer. Kate smiled. Tell them they found me, and tell them they are not just rescuing one person. They are joining a galaxy that is ready to change. As the crowd began to disperse, many aliens approached Kate to offer their species friendship and alliance. Others came to apologize for cheering for her death when she first arrived. A few, including Dr. Korth, asked if they could accompany her to Earth to learn more about human medicine and philosophy. Commander Vexthar, his armor removed and his weapons set aside, approached her last. I still do not understand how you defeated me, he said. Because you were trying to be perfect, Kate replied. But perfection is predictable. Humans are not perfect, and that makes us dangerous in ways you never calculated. What happens to my people now? Kate considered this. That depends on whether they want to be part of the solution or continue being the problem. The galaxy is big enough for everyone, but it is not big enough for tyranny anymore. Kate Morrison had stepped into their arena expecting to die for her species. Instead, she had walked out as the architect of a new galactic order, one built not on the dominance of the strong over the weak, but on the radical idea that every species, no matter how different, had something valuable to contribute. She was not their new god. She was something far more dangerous to the old ways of thinking. She was their teacher, showing them that there was another way to live among the stars. A way based on cooperation instead of conquest, creativity instead of calculation, and mercy instead of murder. The arena would be converted into a meeting hall where representatives from all species